Welcome to Titans Tonight with Keith Bulluck, presented by Pinnacle Financial Partners. Pinnacle is proud to be the official bank of the Tennessee Titans. Visit titansbanking.com to discover what makes Titans banking the ultimate checking for Titans fans. Pinnacle Financial Partners, member FDIC. Welcome to Titans Tonight with Keith Bulluck. I am Amy Wells. Keith Bulluck, of course, is here. And Coach Mack, Dave McGinnis is here, too.
Well, because you asked me to be.
Well, yeah, we did. We did ask you to be here. That is true. You didn't just stumble into the room. But we are so excited to have you here. KB, it's always great to have you here on your own show as well.
It's always fun when you're riding shotgun.
Yeah.
When you're calling the shots.
Well, thanks.
I'm riding
guys.
shotgun. You're calling the shots.
Well, you know, we're all in the same
Mac
car.
and I are.
We'll get there at the same time.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
Just to keep the analogy going. There is a lot to talk about tonight on this edition of Titans Tonight. The Tennessee Titans have a lot going on, I think is the best way to put it. They are wrapping up, and so we are going to wrap up a disappointing game in Los Angeles against the Chargers. They fell 27-17 in that game, but we are looking ahead to the Minnesota Vikings. So before we get there, I want to put a bow on the Titans trip out west to L.A. Keith Bulluck, I'm going to start with you because we haven't had a chance to talk to you about this game yet. What stuck out to you about the Titans' effort in Los Angeles against the Chargers?
Well, I was happy to see Will Levis back out there because at the end of the day, I believe, although with some other things, Will is one of the catalysts that will make this team, have success as we move along. So to see him get back out there healthy and to just, get the feel, knock some of the rust off, get in the football game, make some plays. And, get for Coach Callahan to get some more film to be able to evaluate him because this is a all-year thing. He's a second-year quarterback, and, this isn't, 2000 or 1995 where they let these quarterbacks develop. Of course, you would like to see, Will to be further along, but at the same time, he's showing efforts and he's showing growth, I feel, from that last game he played in the games before. So now going into an even tougher opponent with the Minnesota Vikings, it's all about being able to, as a young player, put games on top of games, stack games. You hear teams talk about stacking wins. Well, as a player, especially a second-year player, you want to take the pot, you take the good with the bad, and then you really focus on the bad during the week because those are the things you want to correct and get out there and show growth when you're in those positions again on Sunday. So that's what I liked because at the end of the day, I think the kid, it is a pro league. He is a professional, but, I understand that quarterback being one of the toughest positions, it might take more time for others to develop at that position. But unfortunately, you don't get that much time.
Will Levis was 18 of 23 pass attempts, 475 yards. He also had 41 yards rushing in that game, 2 touchdowns, 7 sacks, no interceptions. Coach Mack, of those stats, is there one metric that is an indicator of success to you or is an indicator of progress, I guess I should say?
No turnovers.
Yeah.
No turnovers, and you talk about the runs. The runs were legitimate quarterback runs, and he ran at the times you're supposed to run. And he ran when the middle opened up for him, and he also, had significant gains. I thought that he was able to manage, especially in the first half, manage the offense and perform. I agree with KB. It was a sign of growth. Now, when you start putting those sacks in there, first of all, you look at they had 11 negative plays, and negative plays, to me, are unforced errors. The unforced errors as far as the false starts, put you into second and 15, those things, and then multiply the problem, especially in the second half, with the quarterback holding on to some of those sacks. I think 3 of those sacks he held on the ball too long. Just held on to it too long, trying to make something happen downfield when it wasn't there. I mean, that's the area that he needs to grow in more. And to KB's point, he's a second-year player, but he hasn't had anything really fluently happen for him to be able to stack games and to stack experiences. They always say, in professional sports, the one thing you can't manufacture is experience. And so that's what he's getting now. Hopefully he can stay healthy so we can get a true read, at least with the rest of these games that are left this season, for his growth.
Coach Callahan had an interesting quote. It was something that struck me in his Monday press conference. He said that playing quarterback is 80% just doing the mundane, everyday things really well. And then the other 10 to 20% is where your talent kind of kicks in, and that's what separates quarterbacks. But the majority of that job is just doing everyday stuff very consistent and well. Coach Mack, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that, because as someone who's career was spent watching quarterbacks and finding ways to beat them, doing the mundane things in a way that maybe is not consistent, that's got to be what you were always looking for, right? Those cracks?
Yes, and to take it to another place. I mean, sitting across from a guy that I coached for 7 years. But regardless of the position, you've got to do the fundamentals of your position a lot to be able to get to those explosive plays. Because if you're not doing that, then you will never be in position to make those game-changing plays. And it's the same way with the quarterback. Quarterbacks that are always trying to go for the game changer every down, then you're not going to progress your offense. You're not going to move your offense, because you've got to do it, and then you've got to keep firing at it, and then get moments in time where then you've got to rise up and take it over. I mean, I can relate. This is a great week for me, because this week I had one of my other former linebackers, Ron Rivera, was doing the national game for Sports USA. So Chico and I got to talk a lot before the game and just about the career. And, of course, now sitting here with KB doing a radio show. But those two guys did the fundamental things throughout the course of the game. And then when there was a chance to make a play, because those chances present themselves at certain moments, then you got to rise and do it. You got to do the same thing as a quarterback. But if you're always looking for the game changer, those other moments will catch up to you.
Keith Bulluck, I guess it's fair to say then that 80% of playing professional football is doing the mundane things well, consistently?
Well, the mundane things are, your technique, getting your technique down, your routine, the things like, for example, we had Vince Young and Kerry Collins, right? So the mundane things are two totally different things for them. And that 20%, when it comes to them for making the play, okay, Kerry Collins has a big arm. He's going to make a big play with his arm downfield. BY is very athletic. He's either going to use his legs to evade something, then use his arms, whereas Kerry's going to stay in the pocket. But at those point in times, Kerry knows when to maybe force that throw into a cover two or things of that nature. VY knew when to turn it on and off. Obviously, as a quarterback, when you have those special talents, it can get you into trouble, because you do have those talents. But I would say absolutely, when you have that 20% and you got it down, you have that knack of making a play, knowing when it's time to make a play. And you always hear it in sports, usually basketball. You got to let the game come to you. If you're a point guard, a scoring point guard, it might not be your time to score in the first quarter. It's time to set everybody up, set up your big man, set up your shooter, and then you hit yourself for 15 to 18 in the second quarter. Now you're on your pace to have your points or whatever it is. So I think, the very good, football players at every position, offensive line, defensive line, all the positions, you have to work on your technique, and then your special talents take over when time tells.
Well, and some of that has to be a feel thing too, right? Like you can feel when those big moments are coming. You can feel when there's a shift. You can feel when things are developing. And that's just got to come with time, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, because for me, when you walk into the game, you always want to make a play, but the second series of a game, I'm not necessarily thinking, okay, I need to make this play. It's more like in the third quarter when the game is tight, fourth quarter. Now this is when my studying comes in, and when I'm looking for certain formations and certain tendencies, because the mundane I've been doing all game. So now the 20%, like those playmakers, now they're like looking for, a clue if the guard is pulling, or if the tight end is off the line, or the cuts split, or any communication between the quarterback and his players, because when the game is close, especially as a defensive player, that's when you want to swing it. That's when you want to take the momentum from the other opposing offense, and give your offense the momentum and give them the opportunity to go in and score. And that's a great feeling for a defense when, maybe the offense is driving. For example, the Chargers game for the Titans last week, that 95, Titans will – if they were able to get a stop on that drive with that 95-yard drive, it's always bend but don't break. Circumstances are different. But my point being, if they get a stop, get a turnover, however that goes, now that gives the offense momentum, and then that's what the complementary football that they were playing the week before, that's when that stuff kicks in, and good teams do that very consistently.
Mac, at what point when you're looking at your room, because of course this is the National Football League, every player is talented. Every player is good at what they do. At what point do you realize this guy is a Keith Bulluck? This guy is able to find those clues, make those plays, capitalize on those moments. It can't be day one. It can't be, the first year? First 2 years? When do you get an idea that a guy is going to be extra special?
Well, it depends on how long you've been with them.
Yeah.
But the thing that's important is that you live with these guys every day. You live with them, and you get to know them. You get to know what makes them work. You get to know what bothers them. You get to know how they study. You get to know, but the other thing is, everybody is talented, but there's different levels of talent in this league. There are different levels of talent, and the thing that you have to learn as a coach is, don't put guys in situations and ask them to do things that they can't physically do. And I've coached how many players in the 31 seasons that I coached, but I knew which ones, I could come to during a game at those moments that Keith talked about, and I can remember, telling Mike Singletary or telling Otis Wilson or Wilbur Marshall or a Keith Bulluck, hey, we need a play now. Now we need a play. But you know who they are. Everybody else is doing their job, but you don't ask somebody to go outside of what they can do physically, because when you ask them to do that, that's problems. So you got to learn your people, and then it's different. It's different for other people. Levels of ability. It takes a lot to get into the 1% that make this league, but then there's the 1% of the 1% that who can make the big plays.
So obviously I haven't coached to the extent that Coach Mack has, but to give more of my perspective on that, I was able to tell talent when you see somebody do something, it's like, let me see if he can do that again. And usually in practice, for me, I can tell if a player was going to be good, and or even these young kids coming out, just say like a high school football player, their approach to the game at that level, in high school and college, how they talk about it, their commitment. And because like what Mac just said, the one of the one, whatever that statistic he used, it gets smaller and smaller as you climb the levels. So those kids that, and I like, it's like a lot of people can't take it, the heat gets too hot in the kitchen and they phase out. So like that's when someone like myself can move up. I'll take his spot, you know what I mean? Because I wasn't a 5-star, whatever, however it goes, but I know that I love the game and I know what I wanted within the game and where I wanted to get, and not everybody wants it that bad.
Well, that's true. It's 100% true, and there were, and it really. And a lot of players grow at different rates, and that's important too. But what Keith said is very important. Their approach to it. How much are you willing to grind about it, and how much are you willing to do it on a daily? The part about playing professional football and coaching in professional sports, the thing that flushes people out, Amy, is the day-to-day grind. Mm-hmm. It's not the lights during the game, and it's not game. Everybody wants to coach and play on game day, everybody, but it's the daily grind that separates everybody. Then that's when you really find out.
Well, and I think that's what we're starting to see around the Titans facility as this team continues to grow together, as they continue to kind of coalesce as an organization that has changed dramatically, whether it be coaching staff, whether it be support staff with just people in the building. Obviously, the roster looks dramatically different than it did last year and continues to evolve based on injury and everything else that happens over the course of a year. So we continue to see that grind, and that grind is what develops the team, right, Mac? That's what you get the end product of a football team that has an identity, that has a culture, that has everything that you want a team to have. It's developed during the grind of a football season.
Well, it is, and you know guys that you can depend on. When I first came here in 2004 with Keith, he had just gone to the Pro Bowl, but then all of a sudden the team had to be disbanded because of the salary cap, and the Titans rightfully paid Keith Bulluck. They paid him. Mm-hmm. They paid him very well for what he was paid. but he earned,
confirm.
But he earned that. He earned that, but he's also willing to take that upon himself because everybody else left. So he took that on his shoulders that while we're trying to put this back together, I'm going to continue to perform at the level I'm performing at. The team may not be winning right now, but I'm not going to let my performance, or I'm not going to let what I've earned to this point falter. And so that's important. I mean, we've got guys on this team that are just like that too. We do. I mean, Jeffrey Simmons is one of those dudes.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. And to add on, I didn't mean to cut you off, Coach, but to add on to what you were saying. So during that time, that's one of the things, Coach Callahan, Big Jeff, like the guys that are here, they're trying to find out who the foundation guys are. Because like Max said, it's easy to play when things are sweet, you're winning, things are going your way, everybody's laughing, the jokes are funnier and all of those different things. But right now, nothing's funny, nothing's sweet. So let's see who's coming to work, who's coming early, who's staying late, who's doing the extra things, who's doing the little things, because these are the foundation guys. And I keep saying that, and that's been my key word throughout this season, just because I realize and see that's what they're building at this point. They're trying to see who are going to be their foundation guys as they continue to build out what they are trying to become, and that's a championship caliber team. But that starts with guys that are going to hold people accountable, not only their teammates, but themselves. It would be hard for Jeffrey Simmons to say something to someone else in that locker room if he didn't go out there and, ball out every Sunday, like for real. And it's really showing up. So now it's like, man, he's getting paid. He's checking all the boxes. Jeffrey's checking all the boxes. And it's like, you got to bring people with you. Who are you going to bring with you? So, Jeff is trying to find the guys who he's going to bring with him. Coach Callahan is looking around seeing, all right, wait, rewind that play. Who's that kid on special teams? Like it doesn't matter where, they are, but they're trying to find who are going to be our core guys as we put this thing together and start to get some wins as the season goes on. Because at the end of the day, I don't even know what their record is. You throw the record out now you're just trying to build. And if you go on a 4-game win streak, at the end of the year, that's building momentum going into the season. So however it is, I think that, and like I say, I'm not in this building, but, I'm sure whatever their goals are have changed since, the spring to the fall to now, and it's still all a mission until the season's over.
All right, we are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we've got a lot more to talk about right here on Titans Tonight with Keith Bulluck. Welcome back to Titans Tonight with Keith Bulluck, presented by Pinnacle Financial Partners, the official bank of the Tennessee Titans. A lot of good discussion in our first little segment there, but I want to keep going, and what I want to talk about a little bit is defense, because the Titans defense is just a little confusing to people because so many of their numbers are top in the league. They're doing a lot of things so well, and yet something that seems to be really just stumping them a little bit is this red zone defense. It continues to be a problem. And so I figured I've got two defensive gurus sitting right here. I may as well ask the question, what is going on? The Titans have allowed touchdowns on 18 of 28 opponent red zone attempts, but all 28 of 28 red zone attempts for opposing teams have generated some sort of points. My question is why? And Coach Mack, I'm going to start with you because is this a schematic thing?
No, it is production thing.
Okay.
And first of all, you get numbers skewed a little bit. The Detroit game, when you had 5 at the plus 20 because of the return issues, and they score touchdowns every time, every one of those was eye discipline to the max that was violated.
Okay.
Every one of them. Every one of them. The other thing is, if there's a sudden change, which that was, or if people get down in the red zone, and especially we're talking about low red zone from the plus 6 to the goal line, you want to make people take it all the way to third down, and then if they generate a field goal, that's a win. That's a win defensively. But what you can't do, and you can't do it continuously, is give them touchdowns. You just can't do it. And that's the issue that they've had. Now, the 5 with Detroit, that crushed their numbers. But most of it down there, anytime you throw from condensed formations in the low red zone, it's eye discipline the whole way because the back line is a defender, and you're looking where you're not supposed to be looking. And I see Keith smiling over there because we would go. I mean, so much and it's hard. Not hard, but it's an endemic of players down there when they're I mean, they are quivering like a hunting dog in the back of a pickup on go. They're ready to jump at anything, and as soon as something twitches, they jump it, and all of a sudden their man slips out and it's open. So to me, it's eye discipline.
So when you say eye discipline, what you're meaning?
Look, I'm sorry. Keep your eye on
please.
your luggage. Keep your eye on your luggage. You know when you're in the airport, keep your eye on your luggage.
Okay.
And defensively, especially down there, Keith, am I wrong? You've got one person to look at.
Just look at them.
Because you're playing man-to-man anyway. And if you're playing some kind of drop zone down there, you're still in man-to-man because the length of the field is shrunk. So everything is man-to-man anyway. Eye discipline and quit. We don't be a mouse and bite the cheese that's in the trap.
That's not your cheese.
Not your cheese. Don't chase rabbits. Look at your man. Keep your eye on your luggage. That's been the biggest issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm over here smiling because as a player, you're asking about red. So for me, in the field, everything's different. So my mindset changes in the red zone because, like Max, it's like, you can't make a mistake. And I'm not trying to be on SportsCenter, for giving up a tie. I remember I gave up 2 touchdowns in my career, and I remember both of those plays. But one of them was what Mac is talking about. Like I looked inside because I kind of had to because they were running fake power at me, but I was in man-to-man. And it's just that split second, a down block, and then they get like leverage on you, and boom, touchdown. So to answer that from a player standpoint, everyone has a job, and in the red zone, everyone has to do their job for it to work. So if as the D line, you guys are supposed to penetrate the 2 B gaps and the defensive ends keep contained, that's what you have to do. As a linebacker, if we got the tight end and the running back, and then the free linebacker has the hole and is looking for the backside crosser, that's what you have to do. And the safeties and corners have to do, because we practice that. We practice all of those plays, and they're going to come out with like something that you haven't seen, but based on who's in the game, personnel, and how they line up, they could do all the motioning and all the things that they want to do because we practice that. We know if we're going to box 3 wide receivers, if we're going to cone 2 wide receivers. So we have all of our things together. So that's a very, very, very important time during the week of practice. And then when you go back and you watch the film the night before the game, I just remember red zone because that's where you give up points. It's one thing if they get an explosive play, you could fix that. But in the red zone, I just remember that was like an important time.
So as a player, that comes down to just study?
As a
That's
player,
a lot of it?
I would just say, like, so Max said keep your eyes on your luggage. We should say keep your eyes on your fries, because if you grew up with siblings, you know, you get McDonald's, they taking your French fries if you're not looking. So it's the same type thing. So it's study and know what you're supposed to do, and don't worry about anyone else's job. Too often. Like Max said, you're ready to go, sad hut, and then something flashes. You're like, "What's that?" Nah, stay with what you're supposed to do. So it's about discipline. You know, it's really about discipline. Someone taking control. Like we had like a Lance Schulters, and then we had a Chris Hope. We had someone back there in the back end taking control, letting everybody know. And you know, me as a linebacker, we're just communication. Pre-snap communication is huge down there, because you pretty much know what's gonna happen before they snap the ball if you talk about it.
Mac, how hard is it to coach communication? How hard is it to teach guys to really communicate effectively and the way that they need to?
You have to preach it constantly. But on defense, when you find out who see, there's always a dog in a pack that's going to bark louder, and the rest of them are going to follow. Mm-hmm. It's just it's just the way it works. So you find that person, and then everybody else will follow that. But I've always said this: the louder defenses I've ever been around have been the best defenses, and I mean constant. It's constant. I mean, and when we were really good here defensively, with Keith, and he'll say this, when we were really good, they were constantly talking. Constantly. And even if you had no sound on it, when you're just watching tape, you could tell. People are pointing, people are, you can't play defense without communication. You cannot.
Communication, accountability. Like, I definitely remember games where Chris Hope, he'll study something, and, something that I didn't see, and he'll be like, hey, when I say this, this is what it is, and you just got to trust it, and you got to play it. And I remember one game, oh man, it was the Baltimore game.
Yeah.
With, me and Cortland had our little tiff. So I was like thrown off. And I remember it was a 3rd and 5, and C. Hope said 5-yard out. He's running the out. And I didn't really hear him. I just was like, and he ran the out. But that's supposed to be a pick 6. That's supposed to be a pick 6, because that's one of my co-pilots. You see what I'm saying? So we're communicating. He knew, okay, this is a play that that KB will make this play. That's supposed to be a pick 6, and we actually we spoke about that, and I just was like thrown off from some things that had happened in that game. So that's when you're on a really good defense. It's like, yo, Amy, and then like, oh snap, now you make a play. Or if I know something's coming, I'll tell like Albert or Tony Brown, like, yo, they're coming to our side. Here it comes. So now they can really get down, get ready for this counter or this power or their number one run play that we've been working on all week, that they run out of this formation. So if they're down in a 3-point stance, I can let them know that this play is coming, and then it's not happening.
I think the communication part of playing on the defensive side of the ball is something that gets lost a lot to people who are just observers of the game, because you know that on offense you need to hear a snap count and there's cadence, and you know that there's a lot of communication with the coach calling the plays and then the quarterback calling the plays, and there's all of that communication. What gets lost is the amount of communicating that also needs to happen on the defensive side of the ball, so that everybody is assignment sound, so that everybody is picking up on the same thing, is understanding what they're seeing, and is able to react to it. And what it sounds like is some of that takes some time to develop, just because in the same way, if you go to a new job anywhere, you've got to learn how to communicate with your peers a little bit, because not everybody wants to be or communicates in the same way. So there's a little bit of a timing thing to just build that chemistry, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, that's what spring practice is for, and that's what the fall is for. So if you're just starting to, you have to go into the season communicating. Like, it's not going to be week 4, okay, guys, let's communicate. If that's the thing, then you're not playing on a very good defense, or you don't have a lot of cohesion. So that's something that, we were coached really well when I played here, and that's when I think about it. And like, you heard me say something back offline about coaching. But those things are really important. If your goal is to play a specific style of defense, you have to have certain players in your classroom. You have to have people that'll speak up from the D line, people that'll speak up the linebacker room, and at the safety position. I think. I don't know, Mac, you can speak to this. I think the safety position, to have a really strong safety that knows the defense from back to front, helps out a lot. I think about Blaine Bishop when I got here. He knew every single thing, and that kind of him and Eddie Robinson, linebacker, but that kind of motivated me and made me understand, you need to know what the whole defense does. I need to know what Hainsworth does. I need to know what Vandenbosch does. I need to know what our corners are doing. So those things are really valuable.
See, the deeper level that you get from the back to the front is what has to happen, because the guys in the back can see it all. But what you have to be able to do is, when you coach defense, what you're trying to do is give your players enough information and then trust them to study that information, and also to bring their study to you and say, here's what I'm seeing, and then you put that together. But they have to trust one another, because the defensive front, they know what's happening here in front of them.
Like for 2 yards.
Yeah. And so they have to trust their linebackers to tell them. And the linebackers have to trust the safeties to be able to see all the splits. Now, the better the linebacker gets, but they have to trust one another, and then all of that communication has to work during a ball game. But it all starts with the thing that I always did coaching defense, and I would tell my guys this: I am trying to get you ahead of the play.
Yeah.
I want to get you ahead of this play. I don't want you every play. If every play that you go into this ball game, regardless of down and distance, you're playing run and pass 50-50, I haven't done my job, because I've got to eliminate the stuff that's not going to happen and give you by formation, by personnel group, by position on the field. Now, these are the 2 or 3 things they might do. Now, you get a feel and figure it out.
That's that 20%.
That's the 20%, and you've got to get it. I started out in this league with one of the greatest communicators in the history of communication, was Mike Singletary. But getting ahead of the play defensively is the key. And I never wanted to put my players out there, when I was a position coach, when I was a coordinator, or even when I was a head coach, especially because defense, you're reacting.
Yeah.
And you've got to have an edge, and your edge is a study, and your edge is ability to eliminate, not to know what they're going to do all the time, but eliminate what they're not going to do in certain situations. That's big.
Yep. I remember when I was a young safety at Syracuse, so my learning curve kind of went a little different, because I was at safety, a strong safety, so you in cover 3, you give a Ringo or a Lucky call, and that's telling the linebacker that you have force to his side. If I say, Ringo, I'm coming down to the right, and I got your force to your right, it took me about 1.5 years to get this, but then when I go to linebacker, I'm a young linebacker, and I know, okay, in cover 3, you're going to have a safety. If the safety's to your side, I can go fast. If he's not to my side, I got to play slower. So at linebacker, I'm like, where's my Ringo? Where's my Lucky? But then when I was a safety, I'm the safety not given the communication call for about 1 year. Mm-hmm. So you see what I'm saying, how communication correlates, because if you don't get the Ringo Lucky and the ball is snapped and you play fast and you're supposed to be the backside linebacker, that running back is going to cut it backside and hit it out of there. So that's, quick correlation of how it works.
He's good, Mac.
Once upon a time.
Well, and and as I say, as a coach, your responsibility is to help them to eliminate things. All you're trying to do is condense what they have to think about every snap. Condense what they have to think about.
All right. Well, we're going to think about taking a break really quick. And when we come back, I want to talk about the Minnesota Vikings and specifically their defense, because there are a lot of things to discuss with Brian Flores' defense in Minnesota. So, quick break here at Titans Tonight with Keith Bulluck, but stick around. We have a lot more to talk about. Amy Wells here, Keith Bulluck. Coach Mack is here, not Mike Keith tonight. It's Coach Mack instead. But I want to talk a lot about the Minnesota Vikings defense. That's who the Tennessee Titans are getting ready to face this Sunday at Nissan Stadium. Kickoff for that game is at noon. But before we do, I want to play this clip of Brian Callahan at his presser today at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. He was specifically asked about what makes Brian Flores' defenses so good, and here's his response.
One, good players. That's the first thing. Those guys do a really good job on defense and just the personnel in general. I think Jonathan Grenard is maybe the most underrated edge player in football right now. I mean, he's playing fantastic. I think he's really, really good. And then they got a collection of veteran players that are smart. They can handle the scheme. They're really intelligent between Stephon Gilmore and Harrison Smith. I mean, it's a good group. Ivan Pace is really jumps off the tape, particularly as a blitzer. He's a really good player. So good players is the starting point. And then you add the multiplicity. And what I mean by that is they can play their base structure fronts against your 11 personnel. They can play base, and they can play nickel, and they sort of have this complexity that they like to present to you. And on top of that, they'll present 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 guys on the line of scrimmage, all in threatening positions. They'll bring all out pressure, or they'll present the same exact look and they will drop out, and they'll play some version of 2 Tampa, some version of 3. So they do a really good job of marrying their pressure looks to their dropout looks. And so you have to have an answer for the max pressure, because if you don't do anything, you're going to get sacked. But then they also have the complement where whatever they're trying to get you to do, then they drop out and play coverage, and now you're in max protection against a full coverage unit. So you're lessening the amount of guys you can get out in the pattern because you're worried about the protection, and then you're also having to block those pressures when they come. So just a really smart scheme. Really, the multiplicity creates a complexity to it. You have to, in the run game, there's multiple fronts, multiple spots. Obviously, with Flores' time in New England, you see the shades of a lot of that in terms of their multiplicity of their fronts. But really well coached, really well designed scheme, and obviously have made life really, really hard for quarterbacks thus far this season.
Mac, you were visibly responding to some of the things he was saying. What stuck out to you about the Brian Flores defense?
Oh, he's 100% right. First of all, I mean, I know B-Flow, and have watched him develop this defense. Now, look, this defense has roots in a lot of different places. But what Coach Callahan was talking about basically was, I mean, this goes clear back to a lot of Buddy Ryan stuff, BTF, and AFC stuff. BTF was blitz the formation,
and automatic front coverage.
Automatic front and coverage, which you designed everything for what they came out in, and you learned that, and then it's got a lot of Greg Williams to it too, because it's got a lot of what we call bogeys, and what he was talking about then is bogeys: everybody up, everybody mugging a gap, but then when you either bring them, and you can bring them a lot of different areas, but he does it with different personnel in different spots. I mean, you may have a behind-the-ball linebacker that may be lining up clear outside with things, and so the IDs of that stuff is hard. But the bogey means the disguise, and then also the way that you explode out of that disguise. You either explode forward or you explode out of it, and it's difficult. We saw it some when we went up there to Minnesota to spend a week, in training camp with them before that preseason game. But the other thing that has to happen when you're running this type of defense, you need veteran players. But we spent a session talking here about communication. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got to be on the same spot, because if you're not, there's chances for big gashes. But if you are, I mean, and he's right, sometimes you'll have somebody coming from the inside that will be playing clear out in the flat, and you'll have a corner that will be back in the middle of the field. There's a lot of, I've been through this a lot, when I started out with the Bears, where we would have, Mike Singletary was my middle linebacker, and there were times when he would be in the middle of the football field running the post. And so the disguise, the bogeys, he's doing it better than anybody in the league right now, and they've got veteran players that there's a reason it's being very successful right now, and he's 100% right. It's a big strain on the offense.
Keith Bulluck, what do you do to stop it?
It's all about matchups. I think you got offensively, offensively you're not trying to stop the defense. Obviously, you're trying to combat and counter So that's what they're doing defensively. They're taking their matchups. They know it's about matchups, and the Minnesota Vikings are like, well, we think our guy is better than your guy. So this is a situation where, you have to win some individual matchups, win some one-on-ones. You have to take what's given to you because, like Coach Mack said, there are going to be a few times in this game where a coverage is blown, somebody's not going to get to their spot in time, a communication issue where if you are in the right call, you can, make a play. And I think that's how you beat a team like this, or you combat a defense like this, is take what's given to you. Obviously be aware of how they're trying to attack you, and that's going to be learned early in the first quarter. But then from there, the coach has to dial up good plays against the said defense, and then hopefully, the offensive players are able to strike when they get the opportunity. But it's going to be it's like what we said earlier in the show. You got to let the game come to you, and I think that's one of those situations. Don't play behind the ball. You can't be playing behind the chains on this team because they will bring more pressure and more pressure. So you want to stay positive on second down. I don't care if it's 2nd and 7. You just don't want 2nd and 12 or 13.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up with one more break, and then we're getting ready for Minnesota on the other side. So stick with us right here on Titans Tonight with Keith Bulluck. Wrapping things up here at Titans Tonight with Keith Bulluck. Coach Mack, your final thoughts before the Titans take on the Minnesota Vikings, and this has to be fast-ish.
Don't panic against the blitz. Wait for your chances, do it, and then communicate.
KB?
Yeah, go out there, play hard, man. Punch somebody in the nose. They're a really good team, so this is how you kind of, let the league know what you're about, that you're not a doormat and, you're going to compete and build on last week individually and as a team and as coaches.
Sometimes you've got to punch the bigger kid in the face.
Hey, man, come out swinging. Why not? They're gonna definitely try and punch you, so I'm going to get mine off.
Well, the Titans take on the Minnesota Vikings at Nissan Stadium. 12 o'clock kickoff for this game, but Titans Radio, we start early. 11 o'clock Titans Countdown is on. Rhett Bryan, Amy Wells, that's me, Brad Willis, Coach Mack is there, Ramon Foster's there, Mike Keith is there. The whole crew getting you ready for the Titans to take on the Minnesota Vikings, and I think it's going to be a lovely day.
Beautiful weather.
Yeah, football weather. I think it's going to be sunny and 70, I've just heard.
Might have to pull up.
There you go. See, Keith Bulluck might have to make an appearance. And you should make an appearance, too, at Nissan Stadium. Again, when the Tennessee Titans take on the Minnesota Vikings, Nissan Stadium kickoff, again, is at noon. Coach Mack, thanks for coming to hang out with us.
I love doing this show with you guys.
Thanks,
I
Mac.
so appreciate
It's
it.
some real football talk.
Yeah, you guys are great. KB, it is always a pleasure to see
Always.
you. You are just a delight. And
Appreciate you.
we are so happy to get this team back on track. This could be the week, guys, where the Titans take on the Minnesota Vikings and really show up. Make a
Amy,
name for
Keith
themselves.
and I both think you do a great job at driving the bus, too.
Oh, thanks. We didn't crash the car.
Nope, I'll ride shotgun anytime.
You will?
Let's go.
Well, what a nice thing to have someone say. Mac, you riding shotgun too? I guess you both can't.
Look where I'm sitting.
He's
You are
really in the
sitting-
front seat.
You're physically sitting right next to me, so I guess it works. No, I appreciate you guys hanging with me. It's always good to talk about this Titans team. I think there's a lot of good to talk about, as well as some areas for improvement, which are also good things to discuss.
Put it all on the table.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it all here, and I think that that's important. And I think that it also gets us ready for a Titans victory, which is what I'm hanging on for.
That's what you play for.
That's
play-
what you
you gotta
play
stay
for, is a
positive.
Titans victory at all times. So again, Nissan Stadium, Titans, Vikings, kickoff is at noon. We are on the radio at 11 o'clock for Titans Radio. Titans Countdown, you don't want to miss it. Thank you for tuning in for Titans Tonight with Keith Bulluck, presented by Pinnacle Financial Partners. We'll see you next time.